Minecraft modding. It's a way for people to enjoy their specific playstyle to a fuller extent. If you enjoy redstone contraptions, you can download the Create mod. If you enjoy creative building, you can download World Edit or Lightmatica. If you want a horror experience, you can download a mod like the Cave Dweller. Millions of mods have been created since Minecraft's release, but what happens when someone creates a mod as bait, a lure, designed to drag its victims to an untimely demise? This is the mystery of STRUCTURE.ZIP. It all starts with this channel, Mining with Miller. Having only 2 subscribers and created in late 2020, it has 9 public videos that all seem to cover a structure mod. However, each video gets progressively more unsettling than the last, but we'll get to those later. For now, let's start with the first video, Structure Mod. We start on Miller's desktop as they start the recording. Right away, we see that this is taking place in April of 2023. That's strange, as the video was uploaded on August 11th, 2024, over a year after being recorded. Why these videos took so long to surface is hard to say, but I assume one of the other videos explains it later. Regardless, we then see Miller extract a file called structure.jar from the structure.zip folder and place it in their mods folder. And pretty soon, we'll see that this is the worst decision that they've ever made. We also see that their name is probably Ivan based on the file path. On top of that, the latest version in the Minecraft launcher is 1.19.4, released on March 14th, 2023. So, for those of you who are internally yelling at me that the date might be set to day, month, year, well, there you go. Ivan launches the game and everything seems normal. They create a new world and start playing survival as usual. But then we see something strange. Red wool in the trees. However, as Ivan goes towards it, we find out it's just a tent. After that, everything goes about as normal as a mod showcase can. Ivan plays survival as usual for a while after looting the chest he found in the tent. Nothing out of the ordinary happens. Almost. Right at the end of the video, we see this in chat just before the video ends. Unable to locate path, users Ivan app data roaming Minecraft mods structure VIR. Creating path, VIR path established. Restarting. This raises a lot of questions. For one, what's VIR? Why wasn't the path already established? It could be that it's just an error with the mod, but even then, why would the entire device need to restart to update a Minecraft mod's file path? If just the game was restarting, that would make a lot more sense. But because the recording stopped, it's most likely that the device restarted, shutting down OBS and stopping the recording. So what's VIR? Well, it's impossible to say just yet, but we'll keep it in mind for now as we look for the answer. The second video on Ivan's channel is Structure Mod Video 2, uploaded on August 12th, 2024. We start on his desktop and see that a single day has passed since the last recording, and then he logs onto the game and plays as usual. Other than finding a new house supposedly added by the mod, nothing out of the ordinary happens. Until right after the 5-minute mark, when we see this in the fog. It seems to resemble a human made completely out of stone and placed halfway into the ground. However, it disappears right after Ivan turns around. He then starts walking towards it when the screen randomly turns black. However, he explains this in the description, stating that the game froze and OBS simply didn't record it properly. On top of that, right when Ivan gets near where the structure was before disappearing, this message shows up in chat. Unknown structure, structure Stoneman. After this, the video ends, once again suggesting that Ivan's device likely crashed or restarted. So a massive stone statue appears, disappears, freezes the game, and then shuts the player's device down? I find it hard to believe that that's just a coincidence, but why? What was this? Well, it's hard to say just yet, because it's not really impossible that the mod could have just added a statue. However, it randomly disappearing in addition to the weird stuff with VIR made it questionable. It could be spying on Ivan or something like that, but this early on it's impossible to know for sure. So let's move on to video 3. The third video on the channel is Structure Mod Mining Shaft, uploaded on August 15th and recorded on April 5th, 2023. Not much happens this video. Ivan just plays the game, catching fish, cooking food, crafting items, nothing of much interest. However, near the end of the video, as he makes his way into this cave, he finds a new mine shaft structure. On its own, this isn't very significant, but right when he approaches it, whether by coincidence or not, we see some disturbing things in the chat. The VIR path comes up again, this time saying VIR 049 Ivan Miller has opened. After that, a string of numbers starts being typed out, reading 1762787 240 Ivan Miller. After seeing this, Ivan quickly exits the game and the recording ends. This basically confirms that whatever VIR isn't just an innocent mod folder, but if not that, then what? The mod collected Ivan's first and last name and what seems to be his IP address, but what's its goal? It's collecting information and hiding a stone statue? What's the point? If this is something as simple as a mod designed to hack your account or steal your information, why jump through all these hoops? What does a stone statue have to do with any of it? If it was just one or the other happening on their own, it might make more sense, but both things happening at one time make this a lot more confusing. If I'm right about the statue being used to spy on the player, that would explain how it got Ivan's IP, and also why the statue disappears when it's not being looked at. However, that's just a theory, and it still doesn't answer how VIR is connected to any of this. But to figure that out, we're just gonna have to keep digging. Structure Mod Showcase Episode 4, uploaded on August 19th and recorded on April 8th. The video starts on Ivan's desktop with Windows Defender open, which means Ivan is probably getting paranoid, so clearly something is amiss. He doesn't show anything else and gets right back into the game, starting where we left off in the last video. He gets in a nearby minecart and rides it straight into the new mineshaft structure. He then goes around mining ores, plugging holes, and looting chests, right up until he gets near the end of the tunnel, and we hear something strange. After that, Ivan decides to mine towards the surface, either looking for what the sound is or to try and get away from it. However, as he arrives at the surface, the sound gets louder and the tunnel is flooded with water. He looks up and we see the source of the noise. Another stone man, this time bent over holding its face, weeping. As he approaches it, we see the message, "Failed to unload structure stone man. State visible." This is probably why the stone man from before randomly vanished. If it's only able to unload when out of the player's sight, that would explain the previous statue's disappearance. Ivan starts swimming up the statue's tiers, and the sound gets louder as we approach its head. But then, he makes the mistake of turning around, and when he looks back, once again, the statue has vanished. He slowly floats back to the ground, fights some monsters, and then ends the video. This entire video confirms that these statues aren't just structures added for fun, and might not even be spies. But what's going on? Why is it crying? While I can't really explain the crying part yet, I do think that these two structures are the same one. Before, this statue was referred to as Structure::Stoneman, and in this video, the crying statue was referred to as the same thing, despite being a very clearly different statue. If they were separate structures in the mod files, they would have different IDs, but these don't. If it's true that they're the same structure, it's possible that these are sentient, which would explain why it's able to move and express emotions. But it's hard to say how much free will they could truly have, or if there's even more than one. So, let's delve deeper into this rabbit hole and find out. Structure Mod Showcase Angry Statue, the 5th video on the channel, uploaded on August 21st, 2024, and recorded on April 10th the year before. The video starts on the desktop again, and when Ivan logs back into the world, he's back where he was when he left off before, and decides to go and explore the world. He finds a village, and then he finds a new tent structure. He doesn't notice, but as he walks towards the tent, we see the stone man once again looming in the fog. Once he notices it, he doesn't look away at all, so I assume by this point that he's figured out why they keep disappearing. As he approaches it, we start to hear screaming and crying. However, this statue isn't physically displaying any emotions like the previous one. Ivan decides to build up towards the statue and then mine inside, and as he gets towards the head, there appear to be signs inside. Once inside, we can see the signs display a file path that leads to VIR, VIR subjects, VIR048.txt. He takes a screenshot of the signs, and then we see this message a few seconds later. User Ivan Miller not registered in directory VIR personnel. Restarting, error, unauthorized personnel. There's quite a lot to unpack here. For one, we know that VIR is connected to the stone statues in some way, shape, or form. We just don't really know what that is yet. And we also know that VIR isn't just a mod subfolder. It has personnel, subjects, and it's trying to hide the statues and not allowing non-authorized personnel to be near them. Clearly something is going on between the two things, but what's the connection? What's VIR and what is it trying to do with the statues? Based on the fact that 2 of the 3 we've seen have been crying, screaming, or both, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that it's probably not something good. Because VIR has subjects and personnel, it's possible this could be some kind of experiment or prison, but why put this into a Minecraft mod? And more importantly, does this pose any kind of threat to Ivan? It's hard to say just yet, but we're definitely getting close. Structure Mod Video 6, uploaded on August 26th, 2024, and recorded on April 11th, 2023. We start in the game this time, and when Ivan logs in, he falls from the sky, as the statue he was standing in before is no longer loaded in. He lands in a river near where the statue used to be, and then makes his way back to his house. Aside from passing the ruined tent he saw in the last video and looting some random things along the way, nothing of interest happens until he gets back to his house, and then for some reason decides to type /help. All of the commands listed are normal aside from this. /vir. He runs the command and sees this message, current VIR directory, and then lists the file path for the structure mod, and the video ends. Nothing much happened in this video, but now we have about as much information as we could get, so let's move on to the final pieces of the puzzle. Video 7, Structure Mod Virus, uploaded on August 18th and recorded on April 12th. This video has no actual gameplay, and instead seems to be Ivan trying to figure out what's going on, and based on the title, he thinks the mod is a virus. We see that he pasted the file path we saw in the last video into a notepad, and has the file open in another window. He opens the folder and everything is normal aside from these two files, VIR and VIR049. He opens VIR049 and sees another two files, Ivan Miller and VIR personnel. He tries to open the file with his name on it, but it seems to be locked, playing an error sound every time he tries. He goes to open VIR personnel, and that one seems to work fine, and inside he finds a folder called Pavel Krakowski. He opens that and sees some incredibly strange things. There's an identification badge, photograph, and text document. On the ID, we can see that whoever this is part of VIR. We get more details about what he's actually doing in his text document, which states that he's a security and consciousness transfer specialist and is working on something called Project Stoneman. We also see another name, Stanton Edward, listed as his director. After that, Ivan goes back to try and open his folder again, fails, and then looks through some of the other folders, finding nothing but JSON files for various structures. He tries to open the folder called VIR, but once again gets an error sound, and after that, gives up and ends the video. The next video is basically a continuation of the last one, titled Do Not Download Structure Mod, uploaded on August 30th, 2024, and recorded on April 13th, 2023. Ivan returns to investigate the mods folder further, and decides to move the VIR and VIR049 folders to his desktop, and this time the folders open correctly as opposed to being locked. My guess is that the folders needed to be in the correct file path to be secure properly, and Ivan moving them out of their original locations probably unlocked the security and allows him to view them as usual. Regardless of how the security works, we now get to see what's in the VIR folder. Inside, there are 3 subfolders and an image. There's Project Stoneman, VIR personnel, subjects, and icon. The icon appears to be a brain as well as the letters VIR under it, but it's not of much interest, and Ivan quickly moves on to investigating the other folders. The first folder he opens is Project Stoneman, which has 2 JSON files in it, datascrape and stone_man, which is the same ID that was used to refer to it when we saw it in the other videos. So it would seem that these statues are used to collect the player's information like I suspected, or they're just related to the datascrape file in one way or another. After finding that, Ivan moves on to the VIR personnel folder, and we find 2 new names, as well as the person we heard of before, Edward Stanton, from the Pavel Krakowski text file. We also see Gabriel Torres and Naveen Kapoor, who we've not heard of up until now. He starts by looking into the Edward Stanton folder, and finds that it's set up the same way as the Krakowski folder from before, listing his ID, picture, and text document. His VIR ID is set up just like Pavel's, with an ID number and also Project Stoneman VIR049 listed. In his text document, it's all the same as Pavel's, listing his birth date, credentials, and project. However, his director is listed as the Virtual Immortality Research Foundation, which I assume is what VIR stands for. We then see this photo of him before moving on to Gabriel Torres and Naveen Kapoor, who are listed the same way as Pavel, with the only difference being their roles. Gabriel is supposedly in charge of psychological monitoring, and Naveen is in charge of subject acquisition. After seeing all of this, Ivan moves on to the VIR subjects folder, and things take a very dark turn. We see a multitude of text documents listed, starting at VIR001 and ending with VIR049. Ivan opens VIR002 and sees something very disturbing. Subject ID 002, William Brown, status deceased. Time in Stoneman 2 days, 23 hours, 49 minutes, 20 seconds. Time before mental collapse 8 hours, 29 minutes, 13 seconds. After seeing that, Ivan keeps looking to figure out more. He opens VIR001, Jonathan King. Status deceased. He keeps looking. VIR 048. Joseph Smith. Status functional. Time in Stoneman 2 days, 13 hours, 53 minutes, and 12 seconds. This heavily implies that the crying and screaming was him. Joseph Smith is the Stoneman, or he's trapped inside of it. Regardless, Ivan keeps looking. VIR 049. Ivan Miller. Status ongoing. This sends Ivan into a panic, and he decides to look into the folder named after himself that refused to open before. And to his shock, when he opens it, he sees himself in a picture of his own home. He opens one of the text documents to see his name, date of birth, and subject ID, as well as an acquisition date, the 16th of April, 2023, 3 days after the video was recorded. He opens the second text file only to see his IP, address, city, state, zip code, phone number, latitude, and longitude. The most unsettling part about this is that it can't just be a joke. In every video so far, we've seen that Ivan has files named UAA, which stands for the University of Anchorage, Alaska, which means that all of this information is probably right. This shakes Ivan to his core, deleting the folders and stopping the recording immediately. These 2 videos are massive. They give us a ton of information about VIR and the Stoneman statues. So before we move on to the final video, let's lay out what we know so far. We'll start with the Stoneman statues. In videos 4 and 5, we see that they're capable of expressing at least 2 emotions, and are supposed to disappear when not being looked at in order to hide their existence. In the video we just watched, it's basically confirmed that the emotions they express are due to having people trapped inside, as insinuated by the VIR subject text documents. This undoubtedly connects them to VIR, possibly being used to scrape data, collecting it into a VIR folder like Ivan's, and then using them as subjects inside the Stoneman. However, we still don't know what the motive behind doing this is. As for VIR itself, we know that it's actually called the Virtual Immortality Research Foundation. What it exists for isn't fully known yet. However, we know it's probably what created the mod. Definitely created the Stoneman and is using them for something called Project Stoneman. Again, we still don't know why this project exists or what it exists for, but we know that it has at least 4 people involved. Edward Stanton, Gabriel Torres, Naveen Kapoor, and Pavel Krakowski. So, it seems that these 4 people are working on the Stoneman project, which is using the mod to collect the players' data and then put them into the Stoneman statues. And they've done this to at least 48 people based on the VIR subjects folder, ending at 49, which is supposed to be Ivan. But even with all this information laid out, it's still pretty hard to figure out what VIR is actually trying to do. We only need a little more information, and that comes in this video. However, as you're about to see, VIR's secrets won't be unraveled so easily. The final video on the channel is by far the most unsettling. It's the point of view of the person trapped inside the Stoneman, and as we can see on the top right corner, it's Ivan. Despite deleting the folders which housed his information, it seems he was still kidnapped and forced to live inside of the statue. In the video, we hear him shouting, asking for help, and coughing. Based on the time listed in the top right, it seems that Ivan has been in this situation for 27 hours straight. It's impossible to say what the rest of the experience here is like, as this clip is only 30 seconds long. He may be unable to sleep, move, hear, or feel anything at all. But regardless, based on his behavior, I assume this is mentally and possibly physical torture. On top of that, his pulse and mental state are listed. If this were a perfectly safe experience, that would be completely unnecessary. And we know from the VIR subject's text documents that whatever is happening here usually results in death. We still don't know what the purpose of these experiments is, but the description of the video might have the answers, as it's rather odd. At first, it looks like a jumbled mess of random letters and symbols, but I'm sure a few of you recognized it as ASCII text. For those of you who don't know, ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Exchange, and is an encoding method for standard electronic communication. I don't really know what that means, I just ripped it from Wikipedia to be honest. However, it's pretty easy to decode either way, but when we do that, it's just a random line of symbols, not readable text or a link. So clearly something needs to change, but what? The only thing that we can really adjust here to get a different outcome are the numbers, but what do we do? Well, I assume that we somehow need to get the numbers to be smaller, as anything higher will result in more gibberish meaningless symbols. But how do we do that? I tried subtracting 9 from each of them for each video upload. Subtracting 10 as that's the duration of time between the first video being recorded and the last video being recorded. I even tried subtracting the individual days of the recordings and uploads, but none of it worked. But when looking at all of the dates, I noticed that the first and last videos had 20 days between upload time, but 10 days between recording time. Exactly half. After throwing random math operations at the ASCII code for multiple hours, I decided it's worth a shot to just cut them in half. And to my surprise, I got this one decoding it. Even more code. However, this is a lot less obnoxious, as it's significantly less convoluted. This is just base 64 encoded text, and can easily be decoded with any online program. MOBU9MQ, which is confusing as it's not an encoded message, however, that's just because it's the end of an imager link. If we follow the link, we find this image with another cryptic description. In the image, we see Gabriel's ID, and the date listed on the top is July 13th, 2023. It's a lengthy page, but it seems to be a report on Ivan and his life in the Stoneman. I won't read the whole thing, but in summary it says,
VIR 049 has been behaving normally. This started on day 73 and has been getting exponentially worse. This is a frequent sign of mental shutdown. 10% of subjects so far only survive 2 weeks after that happens. I suspect that VIR 049 will only live 5 more days. Progress towards a full mental transfer is steady. Each subject since VIR 013 has lasted significantly longer than the last. Brain tissue deterioration is still an issue. We are bringing in 002-027 on the 18th to help with medical research. Progress is good. I expect 3 to 5 year mental stability by VIR 583.
To say the least, this is absolutely insane. The VIR Foundation is using a Minecraft mod to kidnap people and then subject them to months or even years of torture just to try and achieve life inside of the digital realm. And based on the end of the paper, it sounds like they plan to do this to hundreds or even thousands of people for years on end. But that's not even the end of this. The description for this image has a ton of text encoded in binary. If we decode it, we get a bunch of ASCII again, but this time there's also some Morse code. Thankfully, there isn't any random math to do, it's a simple decoding process. When decoded, we get a SoundCloud link, which leads to a noise that sounds like this. It sounds like a bunch of random beeps, because that's what it is. However, it's not exactly random. It's actually a spectrogram, which is when an image is hidden inside of a sound, which makes it pretty awful to listen to. Opening this in a spectrogram shows even more binary, which translates to ZDSQKC1, which is yet another imager ID. When we open it, it's another paper written by Gabriel Torres, this time in early 2020. It says this.
Project Stoneman assignment details. VIR has assigned us under Professor Stanton to work on Project Stoneman. I am head of psychological monitoring. Krakowski is in charge of security as well as consciousness transfer. Naveen Kapoor is in charge of subject acquisition. Professor Stanton will oversee the project as long as he is capable. VIR has no current estimate for how many subjects we'll need. Using various data scrapers, VIR will provide us with as many subjects as needed. VIR estimates that this project will take between 19 to 45 years. Our goal is to monitor the physical and mental reaction the human body has when subjected to prolonged virtual transfer.
So, there it is. The undisputable answer to our question. That's where the story ends. No more encrypted text, no more videos. By this point, Ivan is dead, and many others have likely followed suit. This story, unfortunately, has no happy ending, but we know for certain what took place. The Stoneman wasn't just a statue. It's not just a structure. It's a prison, trapping the mind of unwilling victims at the hands of an organization willing to murder hundreds of people over years of torture, all in pursuit of immortality in a virtual world. So, next time you go to download that mod that caught your eye, think twice, because that decision will be set in stone.